Don't waste time on waste. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another When It Comes Down to It. In this particular case, we're talking about general waste disposal. Now, the really important thing to do first here is to determine the type of waste we're dealing with. Now, what's kind of neat is we're in the IICRC world. Most of us utilize the S500, and that has what, of course, categories of water, which also defines a certain amount of specific waste in our water losses. Now, if you look at testbook.com, which is pretty much a big group that supplies a lot of information to the science industry, they actually say there are 7 types of waste out there. There's organic waste, plastic waste, metal waste, electronic waste, and then there's 3 types of nuclear waste: low, medium, and high in the nuclear world. So those basically turn into 7 types of waste. Now, if you really want to look for waste, of course, one of the first things people think of is EPA or DEQ, and of course, you always want to go to your local regulatory agency and see how they classify waste in your area, okay? Because it could be different in San Francisco than Melbourne, Australia, New York City, or Paris, wherever you happen to be in the world. The concept is make sure you've got the local system set up. Now, EPA is a little bit broader. Solid waste, hazardous and non-hazardous industrial waste, agricultural and animal waste, medical waste, radioactive waste, construction and demolition waste, mining, oil and gas waste, fossil fuels, sludge. What's really kind of unique about this is no one mentions government waste. That might be the biggest waste of all, right? But seriously, folks, what we need to make sure of is you need to know what you're handling and what the rules and regulations are there, especially, of course, when we're dealing in the contaminated building category, any types of hazardous or regulated waste, critically important we handle properly. The second most important thing about handling waste is the transportation of it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of rules and regulations when we get into regulated and hazardous waste, so we're not going to worry about delving into that today. That's going to be regulated, and you're going to have to abide by that. And of course, I highly recommend always have the owner of the facility contact the waste disposal company directly for any hazardous or regulated materials, if at all possible. Because in the United States of America, there's a thing called cradle to grave, which means if you touch the waste, and even though you weren't going to dispose of it, but if I remove it from a building and hand it off to someone else to dispose of it, if they dispose of it improperly, or if that landfill fails, I'm still on the ticket for possibly having to take care of that issue. It can come back to you in the U.S., so be careful. What we want you to do is go directly from owner to waste carrier. And then that way you don't have to handle those types of waste. Because trust me, folks, lots of money can be lost in the mishandling of regulated or especially hazardous materials. So we want to make sure we got that taken care of. Now, one of the things a lot of us do in the world of restoration is we run our own dumpster trucks and whatnot. Now, obviously, if you've got a service, you're just going to take that money, put it back onto the bill, and charge it. But a lot of us have our own dumpsters and our own disposal, and many of us operate in more than one city or counties. So one thing that you have to remember is, let's not do like a friend of mine. He would go to work in the next county, and because it's a $100 fee to dump there, because it's out of county, plus, of course, the dump fee for the materials. He would have his truck drive it all the way back into his own county and then drive all the way back out to the job site and pick up more to save that $100 fee. Now, that's 2 men in a dumpster truck basically for 2 hours. You can't tell me he was saving money by saving that $100. He was spending a lot of time and a lot of money when what? If he'd have just driven from the house 2 miles, paid the extra $100, dumped it, they'd have had it all done in 30 minutes. So make sure you understand the time and the cost in the transportation of that waste, okay? Especially in the bigger side of things. Now, on the smaller side of things, like a home or whatnot, look into rolling bins, rolling garbage cans, rolling dollies, and things like that to easily transport, especially heavy waste, out of the home. And of course, always protect any flooring areas, and any walls or any other materials that you could possibly damage by transporting the waste. If you're in the back of a property, instead of bringing it all the way through the unaffected area of the property, it might be better to take it out a back door or even remove a window and take it all out the back window. And of course, as we have in our videos, look into trash chutes and things like that if you're working on multiple stories. So efficient transportation of the waste is critically important. So step number 3 is basically understanding the regulatory side of the world. Somebody in your company should be HAZWOPER trained. That is an OSHA course in the United States, but basically it talks about the very different types of waste out there, and that varied different types of waste will of course include hazardous and regulated waste. The HAZWOPER course obviously teaches you HAZCOM for that type of waste disposal. Make absolutely sure whoever is in charge of your waste department has HAZWOPER trainings, typically about 30 hours in the U.S., different around the world. But when it comes down to it, the most important thing is know your waste, know the proper procedures for the disposal, and do it the most efficient way possible. As always, thanks for learning with RTIlearning.com, and thanks to C&R Magazine for distribution of the series. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another When It Comes Down to It.
Close. You got it. You just delayed it. The sheer effort to not say.
It's like him in the room. Yeah, that's it. No. I got to blame it on somebody. I can't blame it on myself, man. The most important thing about regulatory and hazardous waste shippers, if I could read this doggone thing, I'd have it covered.